We've explored making our sprites move using that counter pattern, but there's something else that we can use, and that's we can set the velocity of our sprites. So if you're going to take a look here, we have a feather, and they're asking us to float it down. Now I could write that counter pattern, the sprites y minus equals sprites y plus 2, and we could cause that to move. Otherwise, I could come here and set my velocity and say the feather's velocity equals 2. Now what you're going to see is, once we run this program, we're telling the computer that the velocity on the y-axis is going to be 2. If I just come in here and I change this to my x-axis, we can run it and we can see that it moves on the 2. And just like before, if we combine these, I can say my y-axis here, we would now see that we move diagonally with that. So as we move on, we can also do the same thing with our rotation movement. So I'm going to set my rotation here. The sprite that I have is set up for me, and that variable is sun. I'm going to set my rotation speed to 2. And again, if you feel more comfortable running the block mode on this, do so. But you're going to see now I rotate on there at a speed of 2. So I don't have to run that counter pattern like we would have done before, saying sun's rotation speed, equals, and along those lines. So what we have here is they're asking us to run an if statement that when the key is pressed down, we're going to use the rotation block to start the spinning. So I'm going to come here to my rotation speed. My sprite, if we look at the variable, is called wheel. I'm going to set this equal to 3. And now when I come here and I run this program, you're going to see when the space bar is pressed down, it's running at a rotation speed of 3, so I'm using that user input. But what happens if I let go? If I let go, it continues to spin. So what we could do is we could write that else statement here, and we could do else wheel, and I'm just going to copy it from here. Again, one of the advantages of not using the block programming. And I can set that to 0. So if I press down, if key went down. So you can see if I have to keep pressing this. So I would actually want to change this is key down. I change it to key down. Now when I reset this, it spins, and when I let go, it stops on that rotational axis. So if we move here to our soccer ball, it bounces off the bottom, but they also wanted to bounce off the top. I'm just going to copy this if statement. And if we read what it says, if y is greater than 380, bounce the ball at a -5 velocity. So what I'm going to say is, if the ball is less than, let's say, if we go up here on the axis, we'll say less than 20 on the y. And again, I use this to be able to read my xy coordinates. I'm going to change the velocity to a +5. So now we can see that ball bounces. And when we get to being less than our 20, it bounces back. So if we go on, they're asking, you're going to choose one of these to practice with now. And then your assessment is on bubble 10. And on this, if you hit the right arrow, you want the fish to go right. If the fish gets to the right-hand side, the fish needs to move to the left. And if the fish gets to the left-hand side, it needs to go to the right. So as you navigate this, you're going to use your sprite velocity X. So if it reaches here, it needs to turn back around. If it reaches here, it needs to go back around that way.